Okay, Corey. So I've got a question for you, mate. I was on
Yes.
PPC Reddit this morning,
Okay.
and rather than our traditional videos where we be talking about frameworks, mindsets, and principles, I was like, let's go into the how-tos. But I want to get your opinion on this because I actually found this was a really interesting topic that a lot of people do think about, which is how do you optimize target CPA in order to get the lowest CPA without losing conversions? So, how do I make those adjustments
Yeah.
so then I do not lose the volume? Because if you go too high, you'll pay too much.
Yeah.
If you go too low, you'll miss out on opportunities. So, do
Yeah.
you want me to bring up the
Yeah.
post?
Please. Let's do that. Yeah. We can show the
Let's
post.
get
All
it
you
up.
visuals out there. I'm a visual person too, man. I got to see things. All
So
right.
here we
Here we
go.
go.
And we're not going to read the comments. We'll pretend we're responding, okay?
Come on, negative comments. I'm
No,
kidding.
I don't
Okay,
think
let's
there are
go.
many comments anyway. So I'm thinking that paying too much for each CPA, I'm paying too much for each CPA, but also I don't want to mess up the target CPA and reducing the conversions I get. How is the best way to test and optimize this bidding? Also, if I do some change in my website that could reduce the CPA by increase site conversion rate by increasing the conversion rate. How do I know if Google Ads? Um, how do I know if Google Ads are overspending?
That's a bunch of different things, but okay, let's tackle one at a time. Let's start at the top. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear that question? Let's say you got it on a call right now and you just hit with that question. What's the
Yeah,
first thing that comes to mind?
I would come back to the main outcomes, going, how many conversions do you need to be getting a month, or what is the budget? Either going with the budget and then going, let's just say they've got $10,000 and their cost per lead goal is X amount, so they get amount of leads, or they want to get this many leads, and then you reverse engineer it. I think it always starts off with being really clear on your outcome, on the goal, because I think one of the things people can get caught up a lot with is constantly trying to get cheaper leads.
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
that's still like a bit of like a beginner mindset, which is great because that shows that you know what to do to reduce the cost. But I actually noticed that over time now, especially with a lot of clients I'm working with, I'm going for more expensive cost per leads because I know the exact keyword that turns into a sale. And this is lead generation, by the way. So target CPA tends to be aligned with more lead generation. Yes, you can do it with e-commerce, but e-commerce you tend to go target right. So the challenge with this is you've got to know what your outcome is in leads or sales and then have the data to reverse engineer it. Because let's just say we've got 20 keywords that convert, but like there's two keywords that get 80% of the leads and 80% of the sales. These are not keywords you want to be trying to cut costs on. These are ones you're like, how do I maximize my impression share? Because I know there's a direct science between the lead and the sale. So that's where I would start. And that's more, once again, that's more like, that's kind of principle, but it's more framework. But
Mhm.
for something like this, I'll ask you, where would you start? And then I can go deeper, or we can go deeper.
Yeah, not to just take a lot of what you said, but that was my first inclination is are we even asking
You
the
have
right
taken what I
question?
said, guys. Just remember this. Corey took what I just said. Then,
Yeah, it's asking that question. Are we even asking the right question first
yeah,
off? Is why is the goal to try to get a lower cost per acquisition? Is it because it's not profitable where it is now? Well, then, okay, maybe you're asking the right question. And if you feel good about establishing that as a baseline profitable, this is the most you can pay for every lead or whatever we're talking about here, then yeah, maybe you are asking the right question. So I'm just going to assume that this is the situation. It's not about just chasing, like Michael said, trying to get the lowest cost per click and the lowest CPA and whatever. Usually, that the profitability is going to be a big part of things that we're optimizing for. But generally speaking, it's also going to be we don't want to kill volume, right? We still need to be feeding the sales team with quality leads.
yeah,
So you might find that just because you're lowering the cost per acquisition, it's not it's compromising too much in terms of volume. So this also lends to the fact that anytime we're talking about finding optimal bid levels, whether that's manual bidding, bid counts, target ROAS, target CPA, you're going to find a point of diminishing returns where
yeah,
lowering that or raising that, it's not going to get you what you really want, which is more money and more profits at the end of the day, right? So just keep that in mind. It's going to be an iterative process, and the marketplace is going to shift. What you used to be able to get for at a certain level of cost per clicks back in the day is
Yeah.
going to change. Like things are going, cost per clicks are going to change. The marketplace is going to change. More competition is going to come in there and be willing to bid way differently than everyone else in those ad auctions. So just know that it's never going to be like, oh, I'm just going to find the perfect target CPA and then everything's fine. It's more like right now, given current conditions, whatever, we've found through testing, and that's the most important thing, through careful testing, that if we bring the target CPA for these products, these services, whatever, to this level, we don't compromise incremental conversions. We are not finding that quality is going down, and the sales team is telling us that. We're finding that overall lead volume isn't going down. Okay, great. Then right now we know that this is the level, but don't expect that to be the same forever. So those are my first thoughts.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. They're great first thoughts. Now let's go to second thoughts. So, so with the stage where this is at, we've got to figure out, is this at the start of a campaign, intermediate stage, or you're like quite seasoned in this, the campaign, the account. So has the campaign or the account had hundreds of leads and you've got sales data attributed back to it, which means that you know that the data, the significance of the data, optimizing the CPA, you're doing it based on enriched, high volume, high quality data. Quality being like, we know these keywords and these leads came from sales. So then when you're optimizing the target CPA, it's based on sales. Or is it just that the campaign's only been live for a few weeks and the cost per target CPA is like, the CPAs are like that, and you don't know if yet you're like, oh, we're paying too much a lead. Do I need to be lowering it? So where you are in the timeline is really important. Regardless of that, because we're not going to have the answer to that. Every business is different. Guys, just remember, every business is different. But the practical things you can do, what I'd start off with is, number one, review your keywords and just make sure that the keywords you're targeting, are they high intent? Are they medium intent? Are they low intent? So just the intent of the keywords. Number two, what are the search terms that are coming through? Because if you want to lower your target or optimize your CPA, it's based on the Google's perception of the quality of the traffic. So you might have the right keywords, but getting horrible search terms. So like doing cleanups, reviews, analysis. This is, I can tell this generically, but like it requires a deep level of analysis and skill set that Cory and I both have. But then after the keywords and search terms, you want to be looking at like your locations, your devices, your demographics, your ad creative, all these things that do influence the outcome, because your CPA is cost per click times divided by whatever by conversion rate. So the conversion rate will increase by the website's, the performance of the website, the landing page, and or the quality of the traffic with a higher intent. So there are so many factors here that you can pay more for traffic, but because you're getting a higher intent traffic and you've got a good landing page, your CPA will actually drop. So when this person is like, how do I do it? There's not like drop the bids by this and this. It's like there's so many factors and a matrix to it that I think just what we have, mate, is experience. So then when you look at the business, the life cycle it's at, all the different elements, it's easier to start just pointing the finger directly rather than, I think I'm paying too much for each CPA. Okay, cool. You think that? That's cool. But like, what's making you think that? Is it past experience? Is it just that the client has a different expectation on outcome? Is it just intuitive? So that's my little thoughts on that. Bit practical, more mindset.
And I think too, if we dig into the language here, how do we optimize target CPA in order to get the lowest target CPA? So that isn't right. You want to think about it. How do you optimize target CPA, the setting that is target cost per acquisition, in order to get the lowest cost per acquisition, not how to get the lowest target, because that's a setting, right? So if we clarify this a little bit more, we say, how do we get a lower cost per acquisition? Because right now it's not profitable. That's a better way to frame this. And then that opens up what we're talking about. Then you start looking at, do I even need to move the target cost per acquisition? And then I start looking at, is this is it a portfolio bid strategy? Is that a target CPA that's used across campaigns? Are they brand? Are they non-brand? And then you dig a little bit deeper. Is that something that we want to set at the ad group level because we have that much data volume justify setting target cost per acquisition at the ad group level? You really, you start with a question like that, and then you get deeper and deeper. And if you work with someone that can work with the data analytics side, they can uncover where you're overpaying for these conversions and which conversions we're even talking about, right? Because sometimes you're looking at blended conversions, right? A blended CPA where demo requests and scroll depth are
We
all
forget about
included
that,
as the
don't we,
same
Cory?
conversion.
Yeah, that's the most
So,
important thing is what conversion are you optimizing towards as well? Because Google's optimizing towards everything.
yeah, whatever you give them as a primary
Yeah.
conversion for that campaign, it's going to
Yeah,
optimize.
man.
So make sure you're segmenting those things, and when you're talking about cost per acquisition, you're framing it in what conversion action does that represent, and if it's blended, it gets pretty messy. So yeah.
So let's actually just quickly scroll through here and see if anything picks up. Reduce your CPA and then check whether the campaign will still spend the same amount. Review
It's not
keywords,
about,
locations.
wait, real quick. It's not about how much your campaign's spending. That's a directional thing in terms of, okay, is it spending? Is it not spending? But if I can spend less and get the same or more conversions, that's a win. So I wouldn't be using the spend as a diagnostic for the final KPI that really matters to your business.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry, yeah. Cory doesn't agree with you.
just be careful about that.
Yeah, here we go. So I think this is where they're saying, how much would you reduce the per test without triggering the learning phase again?
People get really over analytical.
That's a bit too hectic.
That. Yeah.
And I think, look, unfortunately, I think that's what people are looking for. Guys, 100%. No, I'm joking. It's what you've just got to do is, once again, understand the client, the framework, the outcome. Is it because you're trying to lower it because the client actually has an economic number they need to break even or become profitable? Or is it just because you want to keep making things cheaper? Once again, making things cheaper doesn't mean you're getting higher quality leads, because let's just say one lead makes you $10,000 and another lead makes you $2,000. That one that made you $10,000, I'd happily pay $20 more for, $100 more for, because the ROI is there. That's why we're mentioning before, is like, if are you at a more seasoned part of the account where you've got the sales data and the revenue data, you can actually start to understand that lower CPAs is not the outcome. It's actually maximizing conversions, regardless of the cost, because there's a linear ROI to it. We've got a client at the moment that I know that they're averaging a 40x with the advertising we've done with them on Google Ads, and that's non-brand. But there are keywords that are operating at a 60x, so 50% higher. Now, every dollar we spend, we make an additional $20. So those keywords I'm just bidding so aggressively on, because I know that a lower CPA doesn't serve the client. It serves my ego, because I'm getting cheap leads, but I'm here to make the client a lot of money, or their business a lot of money, not to get lower cost per leads. Because at the end of the day, certain business owners who want lower CPAs, if that's what they're looking for, that's an issue. What they're really looking for, the outcome is more business, more clients, more sales. So sometimes it might be having the conversation about what is the outcome at the end of the day. That's me just kind of going some stuff.
Can you go back up to the top? Because there was a couple other pieces to that original post. Yeah, let's go back up. So also, if I do some changes to the website that reduce the CPA, so it's not necessarily, those two things aren't necessarily correlated. I understand the thinking that, if I do some conversion rate optimization, I'm going to get lower cost per acquisition. Not always. Sometimes, again, the marketplace is going to change. You're going to have to bid a little bit more, which means you're paying a little bit more for the lead. Now, hopefully you're getting, with conversion rate optimization, higher conversion rates, but that's like no guarantee. So I just want to be careful about that assumption that it's going to be a perfect correlation. Is saying, by increasing the conversion rates, I might be able to reduce the CPA, but it's just not always a one-to-one. So I just want people to be kind of careful about that type of thinking. Yeah.
There's multiple ways to go about this, guys. And at the end of the day, any sort of conversion rate optimization that does increase the conversion rate, granted that the conversion rate's not being artificially increased by going from, talk to our team to download this $1 million check, you can artificially push it up, that can actually negatively influence it as well. So once again, always align it with the outcome. Let's
Yeah,
scroll
and then the
down.
last piece about oh sorry, I was just gonna
Long one.
wrap that topic up for him. The how do I know if Google Ads has been overspending? So again, you should probably have a loose idea of how much you're willing to spend, how much you're willing to risk, how much you're willing to gamble, invest, whatever you want to say, because this is an investment. You are putting money on the line in the hopes that it's going to achieve your goal. So,
Yeah,
A, don't forget about that. But when you're asking, how do I know if Google Ads is overspending? Well, I mean, I guess that's relative to whatever that top limit you're comfortable risking or investing in this venture that is Google Ads is going to be. But also in terms of overspending, is Google Ads going to be overspending? I mean, again, it's more about framing the question of, am I paying more than I profitably can for a
yeah,
lead or a sale or whatever it is? That's the
yeah,
real bigger question.
yeah. And look, to this person's credit, I reckon they're doing this because this is the best situation. Because if they went to the client, what's your target CPA? They actually wouldn't know. Or how much do you need to be profitable? Most business owners don't know that. So the goal is, how do I just get more leads for less so it increases the probability of, if I get more leads, there's probably more sale opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of, the main thing with this in life is just getting really clear on the numbers and the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Not because then you've got to the contract is that you have to hit it. It's just like we know what we're moving towards. So then if you're hitting that CPA, you can just, I think one of the challenges is people hit that ideal CPA and they're like, how do we get it better? It's like, no, 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 not how do we get it better? How do we keep it going faster and more smoother? I think people go like, they think that just kind of like, it's kind of like someone who's trying to cut weight. And there comes a point where they've lost enough weight, but they're like, I want to keep losing weight. And then it gets that really unhealthy place rather than how do I maintain this and live a healthy lifestyle? It's the same for this. How do I maintain this CPA and maybe grow the volume of leads at that point? Or how do I
Right.
make sure that the rather than just like, because I feel like it goes from that overweight to healthy to anorexic. Like we
Right,
could
for
maybe
sure.
call this like CPA anorexia. But it
Yeah,
is, man.
yeah.
And I actually think it is. That's what happens is we've got this like anorexic mindset because everyone thinks they're overweight with their CPAs and they're always being like, what's the perfect weight? What's the perfect CPA? It's like
Yeah.
your client will tell you, your data analysis will tell you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool,
Yeah.
mate. Anything else to add?
Nope. Just if the person was just sitting with me and they said, "Hey, how can I get a lower cost per lead with Google Ads without losing a bunch of conversions?" I'd say, "Look, it's an experimental thing. You got to kind of
Yeah.
keep working things. You got to get rid of the waste and try different levels. If you're using target CPA, try different levels, see how that impacts volume,
Yeah.
and really monitor that closely and give it a lot of time. Be patient. Depending on your amount of conversions that are coming through a campaign or account or whatever, it might take a lot longer than you're expecting. But just know that going into it, it could take a while. There's no
Yeah.
perfect number. Don't chase like the perfect number thing. It's just you got to look at your own, establish your own benchmarks in your own account for what
Yeah.
normal looks like, and then keep working that around. And again, sometimes seasonality is going to kick in, and that CPA doesn't work ananymore. You're going to have to move it around.
Yeah.
Sometimes you run a promotion or a competitor runs a promotion, and all of a sudden that target CPA isn't going to work anymore. So you just got to keep going into it with a flexible mindset that you're going to find over time. Sometimes the target CPA for a certain thing works really well, and then sometimes it's not, and therefore it's an iterative process. So just don't forget that.
Beautiful, mate.
That's it.
Well, let's wrap up.
Okay, sounds good.
See you guys. Hope you enjoyed it.